They're back. Ad campaigns by the American Freedom Defense Initiative and its president, Pamela Geller, will be littering our city buses yet again. 6 ads in total will be going up, saying things like yesterday's moderate is today's headline. It's not Islamophobia, it's Islamorealism. It equates Muslims to savages, and the MTA in the meantime can do nothing about the ads, though they did try a few years ago. The ads, however, protected under the First Amendment.
For the Freedom Defense Initiative, it was time to celebrate when they won the right to have their anti-Muslim billboards displayed on the side of New York City buses. But maybe the celebration is a mite premature, because the folks in charge of mass transit in the city are not taking this lightly and are fighting back with a policy that may just make the ban stick. Our guest is co-founder of the FDI and will not roll over without a fight on this issue or many others. Let's welcome Pamela Geller back to MidPoint. Pam, it's good to see you again.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Pam, let me start out first of all by some of the attacks that are going on aimed at you by some of the people in the city. For instance, Rabbi Rick Jacobs calls you an infamous fearmonger in the Daily News, and Jennifer Firmino, also in the Daily News, calls you a notorious flamethrower. There are people here who are saying that this is all about hate more than anything else, Pam. How do you react to that?
It's interesting to me that the rabbi never mentions that this is an actual quote in the ad. We are merely quoting high-profile Muslims, using their direct quotes, and no one has a problem with that. Even the news segment that preceded this conversation was so biased. My ads are littering city buses. Truth is litter now. Truth is hate speech. Truth is inflammatory. This is the status, the low state of the world in the information battle space. We created these ads as a response to a terrorist-designated group, UAE-designated terrorist group, Council of American Islamic Relations, who had done an ad campaign rebranding the word jihad, saying jihad was getting to the gym every day, jihad was making friends. Look, this is the gravest threat this nation faces. And we do these ads because the media, as shown in the previous segment where they were describing the ads with a notorious bias, I might add, is clearly enforcing the Sharia. They are Sharia compliant. They will not offend Islam. They will not criticize Islam. There is a problem in Islam.
But here's the next thing, Pam, that I do need to ask you, because many people would look at that line itself. Killing Jews is worship that draws us close to Allah, and they would call that hate to begin with. So you are then taking that and you're putting it on the sides of the buses. Are you not then helping to propagate and push forward that hate by putting that hate message out there? This is what I think a lot of people are getting to.
Absolutely not. It's because they have submitted to this nonsense. The fact is, the jihad against Israel is a religious imperative. It has nothing to do with land. It has everything to do with the Islamic anti-Semitism that's in the Quran. And the fact is, most people don't know that. These ads expose that, and it's much needed because it's not just Israel that's in the crosshairs, but the whole free world.
But I think what a lot of people are pointing out, Pam, is that with that note being up, with that line being up, what you're doing in many ways is pushing more hate towards people who may not believe in this. I mean, you may be throwing it right as people who believe in Islam, and people are saying, wait a minute, not everybody believes in that, but you are then taking this phrase, if you will, and it creates hate against all Islamists, regardless of how they feel, regardless if they're involved in any jihad, if they're just trying to live their lives.
Who says that? I never said that. It seems to me it's the media that's grouping all of the Muslims together. Clearly there's a problem with jihad. And the problem is we can't talk about the problem. This is not going to go away if you bury your head in the sand. You can avoid reality, but you cannot avoid the consequences of avoiding reality. We must talk about these Islamic texts and teachings that call for holy war against the kuffar, against the infidel, the creed apartheid. We see mass wholesale slaughter across the Middle East and across Africa. Christians are being ethnically cleansed from Middle Eastern and African countries. Let's talk about that.
Then who's stopping the talk? Let's start there, Pam. Who's stopping that speech? Is it the mainstream media? Is it magazines? Is it the internet? What is it? Because if we're having, and you and I are having the conversation right now, and I'm happy to have it and get it out in the open and say, okay, fine, let's spit it out, let's use the phrase. Who else is stopping you? Is it just all the major, if you will, networks who say, we don't want to do this because it may hurt our bottom line? What's the reason for it?
You are a rare bird. The fact is, this is not discussed candidly and honestly in the media, in academia or in the culture.
Why not?
So, because there's a fear. There's a very real fear.
The fear of what? Being attacked by the Islamists, if you will, being part of the jihad?
Of course, under the Sharia, you cannot criticize or offend Islam. Look what happened to the editors and the cartoonists at Charlie Hebdo, the French satirical weekly. Look at all the Christians that are being persecuted and in some cases executed for a perceived slight, a perceived insult to Islam. Why didn't any of the Western media run the Danish cartoons back in 2005? Even now, they didn't want to run the Hebdo cartoons. Clearly, the media is self-enforcing the Sharia.
I think many ways at the media too, because there's always a fear that if you are to print something like this, if you are to say something like this, that you may be bringing some sort of harm on your employees, harm on people there. I think there is a fear of that. Would you not agree that they're scared perhaps that you may become the next target?
There is absolutely a fear, but let's be honest. If everybody printed the cartoons, if everybody spoke about it, you couldn't kill everybody now, could you? And this is the problem. We need to be able to discuss this. It's only getting worse. Look at the past 6 years under Obama. We've lost whole swaths of the Middle East and Africa to Islamic supremacist revolutions and movements. It's not getting better, it's getting worse. And the more we silence ourselves, silence emboldens the jihadists.
Okay, then let's take that. If silence emboldens the jihadists, then the MTA is now considering a ban on political or opinion ads. They bring in less revenue. They create legal issues. They basically said, all right, Pam Geller, you want to put this on a bus? We'll just take out all of these ads at this point. Neither you nor anybody else will be able to foster any of these comments in front of the general public now. You know that they're doing this because of you. Do you think they'll succeed, and how are you going to fight back?
Well, you know, they tried this in 2012, and I had gone down to the board meeting, and I had addressed the board meeting. It's an interesting clip. You can get it on YouTube. I intend to do the same thing right now. Look, the MTA, as most transit authorities in metropolitan cities, have the best real estate. They have the billboards, they have the buses, they have the subways. Inoffensive speech needs no protection. The First Amendment was developed precisely in order to protect the speech that was offensive to some. I mean, look, if speech that offends a group is outlawed, that group has absolute power, and a free society is destroyed. A group that cannot be criticized cannot be opposed.
Let me ask you this, Pam, because I started off by giving you a couple of comments from people in the Daily News and others as well. I got about 40 seconds left. Do you hate Muslims?
Of course not. I love Muslims. I help Muslim girls get to safe houses that don't want to wear the hijab, that want to live a free life. That part of my work is never discussed. I love humanity, and I believe in equal rights for all under the law. That's my platform. Individual rights, freedom of speech, and freedom of conscience. And that's where this work comes from.
Why is it then that people always look at you and the first words out of their mouths are hate monger? Why do they say that about you?
Because they're adhering to the Sharia. They are adhering to the law that says you cannot criticize Islam. It's very, very troubling that after centuries of blood and toil and intellectual wrestling, that we got to this place where you cannot criticize the savages.
Pam, I will tell you this much. We've covered this story before. We'll continue to follow this because, quite frankly, it needs to be discussed, and we will. Pamela Geller, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, take care. Open the doors of the arena next. And taking a Baltimore weekend, a possible Japanese apology, and one test high school kids may not want to take under any circumstances. It's all coming up next, right here on MidPoint.